go. Okay, we're going to do it again because it's Sunday night. It's good to see you out there, man.
I'm not a new face. I've just been a hidden face.
That's right. And you've come out from behind the curtains over there. It's good to see you there. John Poleshnik, Lake County Commissioner. Good to see you, man.
Great to see you, Joe. Good to see you.
Woo, John, I didn't know you were there. Good to see you,
Jennifer
everybody.
Gross, State Rep 45. How do you do?
It's good to see you guys. Feels like it's always an eternity month. It feels like it's a month, but it feels like it's been forever since I've seen you.
It does seem that way. All right. Hey, let's get rocking and rolling here tonight. And anybody in the chat, as we always say, if you're in the chat, please chat. And we want to hear from you. We want to make you part of the show tonight. Okay. We've got some bills, House bills and stuff that you were sponsored, co-sponsored and all that. But I do want to just talk quickly about a couple other things, if you don't mind. So this whole thing with the U.S. Senate, okay, there's a lot of controversy going on because, well, if people are not familiar with what's going on there, this is, let me just set the stage a little bit. There was a late night unanimous consent procedure in an almost empty Senate chamber. We really only had 5 senators that showed up for this vote. And the vote was to fund DHS, okay, Department of Homeland Security. That was really what it's about before everybody goes on an Easter vacation. Now, what I have read, there's various accounts, but I read that the Democrats told everybody to go home on vacation from the Senate. John Thune, who I'm referring to as Rhino Thune, he told all the Republicans, go home for vacation. And then there were 5 that were left, 2 Democrats and 3 Republicans, and they pushed through a bipartisan bill at 3 o'clock in the morning. So virtually no one else knew about it. I didn't think you could do this, but there are some weird rules I'm not even aware of that you can if there's no objections and the certain Senate leaders are okay with it. Boom, it happens. But then it went to the House, and it's been reported by Mike Johnson that this bill is horrible, that it's a joke, it's ridiculous. A couple of the things with it is it excludes funding for immigration enforcement. It zeroes out, withholds all appropriations for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. And also the U.S. Border Patrol operations get 0. No new money for those operations unless there were some kind of reform tactics like raids, masks on agents and removed and things like that. All right. I want you guys to talk about this for a minute. Let's just get a little discussion going on it. I don't know, Jennifer Gross, Representative Gross, if you were following this or not. But it does have an Ohio connection because Bernie Moreno, our own Ohio senator, was one of the 5 that was right there in the chamber.
And he did reach out to us today and said that thanks to prior funding, last year's working families tax cuts, agents are still getting paid, and that they fought until 2 a.m. to secure customs fundings, and the Democrats finally caved. Getting customs funded was key, as the only way to get the money in the future reconciliation bill is to instruct the Finance Committee, which would make the process much harder. So according to Senator Moreno, that the funding will continue. And that was after fighting because Senate Democrats refused to fund ICE and Customs, and they weakened, and they've come up with a plan.
Now, the problem I have with all of this, I don't know if you've been on X following this. I've been following it because I was fuming. Okay, so I don't know if I have the correct interpretation of everything because I'd like to really hear what Bernie Moreno has to say and why he's saying it. But Mike Johnson for the House was just ready to explode. On X, I've been following a lot of this on X. It's like everybody is fit to be tied. Okay, we're like ready to explode because of what Thune did. Okay, basically, and even Chuck Schumer, after this passed, was saying, we pulled a fast one on the Republicans. So he was all for this bill. And then it came to Mike Johnson. He said, there's no way in hell that we're going to pass this. And that's where I'm at with it. I don't know if any of you other guys, John, were you following this story at all?
I'm not aware of any legislation passed at 3 a.m. That the sponsors are proud of. I'm not happy here. I frankly think that the Senate should have stayed in session and Republicans should be filibustering right now. No vacation, no going home, not till you pass the SAVE Act, not till you fully fund our Department of Homeland Security. It's time for Republicans to toughen up here. Get out a phone book, start with Aaron Aronson, and just keep reading until the Democrats finally pass. We need to toughen up. We have to push Trump's legislation through, and we're going to have this. We're going to have this ultimate confrontation one time or another, or just going to give up and go home. So I say, let's have it now. Let's just go at it until the SAVE Act is passed, and don't stop until the Democrats all resign and go home in misery.
No, I agree with you there. Here's something. Here's something that got this off X here.
It's well deserved is that we pass stuff in the dark of night because we don't have any guts, and that's clearly what's shown in the Senate leadership. I think they need to get some new leadership over there, in my opinion. The stereotype of Congress is, and it's well deserved, is that we pass stuff in the dark of night because we don't have any guts, and that's clearly what's shown in the Senate leadership. I think they need to get some new leadership over there, in my opinion.
Okay, all right. So that's
what
I've been
reading. Joe. Guys,
what's that?
You know what they say? Nothing good happens after midnight.
Nothing good happens after midnight. It doesn't.
Politics.
No, nothing good. It's either robberies or there's some other hanky-panky stuff. Nothing good happens after midnight. You're right. Especially at 3 a.m.
Especially in government.
And especially in government. Now, this is a little suspicious because they told everybody, go home, go home. Thune told all the Republicans, go home, get out of here. We're not doing anything. And the Democrats told all the Democrats to go out. And then there were 5 of them left in the chamber. They came up with this compromise. They passed it through. And people are livid. And Marino was one of the 5. Now, I know Marino is really...
He's been doing a great job. And
he's been doing a great job.
I think he's really strong. I do believe that there will be another reconciliation bill. And I think that they'll be funding those agencies in a separate bill. That way it's clean. And there's been some chatter about only removing the filibuster for appropriations bills, that they have to be passed. So, I don't know. I'm sure people have opinions one way or the other about those things. But my understanding is that there will eventually be another bill that will fully fund the agencies that were left out in this bill for permanent funding.
Gotcha. All right, let's go over to some of the stuff closer to home here in Ohio. I want to touch on some of the bills that you're either sponsored or co-sponsored and get a little bit more information from you on them. So let's talk about House Bill 783.
All right.
I think this is a good one, and I think this could save some lives. This would definitely save lives. Okay, House Bill 783. It's enacts provisions regarding notice about the possibility of reversing a chemical abortion.
Yes.
So from reading this, it looks like there's 2 pills that the woman takes.
Yep.
She takes the first pill, then there's still time that she could save the baby before the second pill. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So if she goes home and she's taken that first pill, she can take progesterone, which is the current medication that they give women with a threatened miscarriage, or in healthcare they say a threatened abortion. This is the medical term for a miscarriage. And so they give progesterone. The irony is that some say that progesterone is an unproven and shouldn't be used in these cases, yet we do use them for miscarriage to prevent a woman from losing her baby and losing her pregnancy. So in this case, if a woman goes home and in the quiet of the evening or when she gets home, she realizes she has regret, she can immediately call, and this bill will require that the ODH put on the ODH website the 1-800 number reversal, and that she know the exact procedure and what to do, and that every consent at every abortion clinic in Ohio, which, by the way, our abortion numbers are up 15% in 2025. Yep. So we need to do something. And so we can't change the constitutional amendment, but this procedure is obviously unlike any other. A chemical abortion is specific to killing babies and aborting children. So this is a requirement for the abortion clinic to tell the mother in her consent that she has the opportunity, should she change her mind, that the abortion pill reversal is in existence and that it can be used. It needs to be available on the Ohio website. She also needs to be given the 1-800 number. And there are civil penalties to a clinic who does not give this information, and they're not forthright if they don't give the information to the patient. And we find out, then they can be sued and they can be litigated against if they don't put this in there. So this is a way that if a woman has regret, that she may change her mind. It isn't stopping her choice. She still has a choice to have an abortion. What it does is it gives her an option should she regret that choice after the first pill.
And we do know that's now, a great idea. Boy, the more I think about it, you know what it reminds me of is like, you ever send one of those emails and then you wish, oh my God, I wish I hadn't done that.
Or a text.
Yeah, now you got a little bit of time. How much time does a woman have though when she takes that first pill?
Ideally, it's within 4 to 12 hours. But I mean, I'm not an expert in the medical community, but we have saved 8,000 babies nationwide, and this bill is supported by National Right to Life and Ohio Right to Life. So we did a press conference, and I'd be happy to send you guys the link to that or post it under this video if you like, for all the details of the bill specifically. But Ohio Right to Life was there, CCV is in support, and National Right to Life has the physician involved with National Right to Life. We consulted with him. And so the bill is ready for prime time, and we're ready to go. So we'll drop it now. Most likely will not pass this year, but we want people to understand it is available. It is a thing. And then Jonathan Newman, Representative Newman, and myself are the joint sponsors. We have 13 co-sponsors, which I'm very proud of. That's 15 Republicans chose to come along together as a group to support this bill, including the two of us. And we'll drop it again in January next year with hopes that this will be a priority for the caucus as we move forward in the next General Assembly.
That'd be awesome. Let me just ask, Leonard, this is something that might hit home with you. What do you think about that? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have, but the thing to me is that...
Oh, no, what happened? Is anybody still with me? John, are you still with me?
I'm still with you, and I would just say the only disappointing thing about this story is to hear from Representative Gross that there's no chance of this bill passing this year, and that only 15 Republicans are co-sponsoring. It seems that our priorities are in reverse. Every day, every month, every year that we ignore this issue of life, more children are lost. This isn't something you can go back in time and give that option to a young mother after the fact. It's now or never. I wish there was a greater sense of urgency in the State House when it came to matters of life. I wish we were more conservative, or at least as conservative as we say we are.
That's right. Well, John, let's just say a broken clock is right twice a day. So let's say there's always a possibility this bill could pass. We'll start asking for proponent testimony, and we'll see if we can get it done through lame duck in December. So maybe I misspoke there, so I apologize. I don't want you to be discouraged. I just know that oftentimes we aren't as fast as we should be.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead here with another House bill because you got a few of them. Let's talk about 459 here, Caitlin's Law.
Yes, this one's a very sad bill, Joe.
Now, this is a unique one, yeah. Let me just give you a real brief overview, then you fill in all the gaps here. But this has to do with removing dead human remains.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
In order to conceal a crime or hide a death or something like that. Where did this come from?
So, as a representative, not only did we pass Joshua Alert, which was it combines our Amber Alert with disabled children, developmentally delayed and disabled children that need assistance, and changes our alert system so that we can alert for missing children that are not abducted. That bill was for Joshua Al-Latif, who's in my district. This bill is for a young woman named Caitlin Markham. She had a boyfriend who murdered her, and he and his friend hid her body, and they did not find her body for 2 years. Our statute of limitations in Ohio is 6 years, but they did not charge him with the murder for 11 years. So they hid her body, which is considered abuse of a corpse. And so they hid the body. Once they found the body, they could not tell what her manner of death was through the autopsy. And then he admitted to murdering her or killing her. And he got a involuntary manslaughter rather than murder in the second degree. And he got 3 years for admitting to her murder. He could have gotten another 7 to 11 years or 3 to 11 years if we had caught him within 6 years of the murder. The problem is the 6-year statute of limitations expired, so he got 3 years for admitting to killing his girlfriend. We need to change that. If you've hidden a body, and I know people joke about it, they say, we're such good friends that I'd help you hide the body. Don't joke about that anymore, because this guy's friend helped him hide the body. Both the friend and he should have no statute of limitations when they hide a body to conceal a murder or conceal a crime. There should be no statute of limitations, and this bill changes that and makes no statute of limitations if you hide a body to conceal a murder or conceal a crime. And that way they can be charged with the abuse of a corpse at any point. So that's basically what the bill does. This is in honor of Caitlin Markham, who was a young woman who was killed in Fairfield, Ohio, which is in my district. And this is an example of what a true representative does. You should sponsor bills for the people in your district, like Joshua Alert and Amber and Caitlin Markham. So that, unfortunately, is one of the things that you have to do when you're a state rep. You need to stand for the people who've been harmed in your district. And so, I mean,
now this is still in committee, right? This was something that just happened. Well, no, this has been around for a while. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, she was killed over 11 years ago or 13 years ago, and he was charged 2 years ago, and he was convicted. But then 1 year in prison, he has now filed to get out early. That was denied, thankfully, recently in Butler County, because we have some good conservative judges who are like, not only no, but hell no. And he will get his full 3 years. But I think that most of us on this podcast realize that 3 years for murdering your girlfriend is certainly not
That's
enough.
crazy. Yeah, how could you get just 3 years? That doesn't seem like... So it's still in committee, though. It's
Correct. It's in judiciary. And my joint sponsor is Joshua Williams, who I pulled in on the bill, and he's been a great consultant for the bill. And my hope is that we'll get it out soon as we get back from break, and then it will go over to the Senate and we'll pass it out this year.
Very good on that one. Here's another bill, House Bill 561. And 561 is parental clarity on health options and information on conscientious exemptions. So it spells out the acronym CHOICE.
That's
so it's
right.
the CHOICE Act, and it has to do with childhood immunizations. And I guess the parents have a way to get some exemptions if they want to with that, right?
That's right. So back in the day when I sponsored 248, when I was a freshman, there was a portion of the bill that said that the consent that first of all, Ohio does have vaccine mandates. Let's be clear. We have mandated vaccines. However, all parents have 3 exemptions that they may use: religious exemption, reason of conscience, or medical exemption. The challenge is the schools say you're mandated to get your child vaccinated. Parents aren't aware of the 3 exemptions. Yes, it is true. We have mandates. However, the next caveat is, but you do have 3 exemptions. The schools do not tell the parents this. So parents run out and get their children vaccinated. Let me be clear, I misspoke in committee when I was addressing a bioethicist that 105 children have died of vaccination in childhood vaccination from childhood vaccines in Ohio since 1990. I misspoke when I said they were all from the MMR. However, there have been 105 children and over 500 adults in Ohio that have been reported have died of vaccines. So obviously understanding that you can decline vaccines is vitally important. And Rand Paul currently has a federal bill that would remove the protection from liability that Big Pharma has for vaccines. You see, there's very little a parent can do if their child dies or is injured from a vaccine in today's culture and in today's government. And so Rand Paul has a federal bill, but this Ohio bill tells the schools, you must tell the parents that they have these 3 exemptions. And if they fail to do so, it will require the program, they have to be compliant within 30 days. And there is a private right of action in this bill. So they can be sued. So the other thing is that we have private schools right now that are declining the exemptions. So regardless of whether they're Christian or non-Christian schools, private schools have been declining exemptions. So this would require all schools to allow exemptions. A lot of the arguments are this, that if your child is not vaccinated and there's an MMR outbreak, you should have to keep your non-infected healthy child who's unimmunized home because there was an outbreak. The challenge is, guys, that in 1990, between 90 and 93, there's an NIH study that shows that there was an outbreak of measles, and there were about 15 students who got measles. All of them were vaccinated. So the reality is that our vaccination, immunization, immunity is waning. And they've expected that. If you do enough research, you'll find that a lot of people's titers are low. So it's going to happen. We will have outbreaks. The other thing, guys, is that there have been zero deaths in Ohio from the measles since 1990, from 1990 to 2026. Yet there have been 4 deaths of children who have been required to get those vaccines. So the question must be asked, is it fair or is it worth the herd immunity to lose 4 children when we've had no deaths from the disease that we're requiring immunization for?
Well, I think also those statistics can be a little misleading because you're only saying people that have died. But there's a lot of kids that can get some kind of brain damage or autism or all kinds of different effects on them because Big Pharma wants as many shots in the arm as they possibly can, you know. Another thing I found kind of interesting is that you were saying, if I heard it right, that it's some of the private schools don't want to give the parents an option. Is that right?
Correct. I don't want to name some of the private schools. One of them's a religious school that is up north, I believe, near Cuyahoga County. It is a religious school. It's not a Christian religion. So I really don't want to bring out what school it is because it'd be easy for someone to track down. But that school's been particularly egregious in requiring that all their children be vaccinated. The challenge is that people, and look, I was a vaccine zealot just 7 short years ago. So I understand where people are coming from. But if a healthy child or parents want to choose to have their child unvaccinated, that should be the choice of the parents. What the challenge is, the vaccinated parents say that every child should have to be vaccinated. Yet, vaccination is not 100% reliable. And if there's an outbreak, we do see in many cases that even the vaccinated do get the disease. So the statistics are really confusing. It's really, really tough. I think that if a child with any illness is symptomatic, they should stay home, no matter what the disease is. And so parents need to be taught, keep your child home if they're sick. And that prevents a lot of ills, and pun intended.
It does. Let's get the commissioner. Commissioner, anything you want to add to all that?
Number one, absolutely support medical freedom. It used to be non-controversial. Decades ago, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Cruzan versus Missouri Department of Health that we all have an absolute right to refuse medical care, even if that refusal endangers our life. So we used to agree as a society, reinforcing those rights. Number two, I'm not worried about measles. I'm not worried about mumps. I'm not worried about rubella. The number one problem, the most dangerous virus in the United States today is the rhinovirus, and we don't have sufficient inoculation for it yet. That's what we need to worry about. It's the rhinovirus.
Oh, yeah, everybody in Congress has to get vaccinated with that one. Wow.
Geez, Commissioner, I wish I could clone you, man. I wish. I'm sure someone's against cloning, but you rock. You are an amazing man. So thank you. But you're right. I mean, the statistics do show that whether Democrat or Republican, that the majority of parents do believe that that choice should be left up to the parents. And it's in large majority that Ohioans believe that the government should not, especially after COVID, that the government should not force vaccination.
Never want to go back to COVID-19.
No.
Never.
I think it's fair to question, and I think it's fair to say that it isn't just COVID where we deserve choice in this matter. It needs to be parents saying, this is what, I mean, guys, when you go to Walmart, when you go to the ball game, we just had opening day at the Reds. How many people asked everyone around them, what's your vaccine status? They were bumper to bumper, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, yelling and cheering on the Reds and all of that kind of stuff. How many people knew the vaccination status of all the people? No one knows that. You go to Walmart, you shop everywhere, you go to a fair, you go to a festival, you go to a carnival, the whole thing. No one knows the vaccine status, and yet because schools do, parents want the right, some parents want the right to be able to tell other parents, your child cannot be near my child. And yet we know that those children are extremely healthy. They're less likely to get colds and things. I mean, that's what we're starting to see. There are many doctors out there who speak about this. And again, I apologize for my misspeak in committee this past week. But we have had 105 children that are documented to have passed away after a childhood vaccination from 1990 to 2026. Not the MMR alone, but of childhood vaccines. And so, how many children's deaths, how many adult deaths, how many deaths justify forcing people to be vaccinated?
Right. So just to clarify something here, it says whenever a preschool, school, or child care facility communicates immunization requirements, and they can do that through newsletters, social media, videos, anything like that, that same communication must clearly state that exemptions are available.
Yes,
and include the full text of the exemption law and provide its legal citation.
Right now, like for instance, when I put my kids have been homeschooled, private schooled, and public schooled. When they went into public school, the public school sent us this document, and they said your kids must be vaccinated. Well, they were messing with the wrong legislator, and I said, excuse me, they only gave the top sheet. There's another side to that, and they didn't talk about exemptions. And when I asked them about it, they said, well, we don't have to share that. Well, This bill will make them share that, and it needs to be in the same size font. It can't be in teeny tiny size 6 font. compared to the rest of the document. Look, if parents choose to vaccinate, that is a choice that we fight. Liberty means that you get to choose the way you live your life. But liberty also means that others in our community get the choice not to vaccinate. And so this bill is paramount for children, children's health, and I support the bill. I'm a co-sponsor. I support Representative Miller and Representative Rob Blaisdell, who are the joint sponsors on this bill.
All right. Well, let's do one
So,
more.
Joe, before we move on, I just have to throw out there, since we heard about the Cincinnati Reds, that our Lake County Captains are having their opening day on Thursday, April 2nd. So I'm looking forward to being there to see our Captains kick things off on April 2nd.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I've been to a few of those county games. My kids were young. I used to enjoy it because there were no long lines. The beer was really cheap. And you didn't have to wait in long lines or nothing. And to them, it was Major League Baseball. They didn't know any better. And they looked pretty good.
You still get the great popcorn and the hot dog and the whole environment and some of those. We have Presco Park here too in Mason, Ohio as well. Those are all fun, and those have Christian baseball teams from Christian schools that come and play off there. So it's lovely.
Yeah, the one thing I remember from those games, I don't know if they still do it, but it was the beer batter. So I don't know, John, if they still do that. Do they still do? I love that. Okay, so the beer batter. So the guy would come up for the opposing team. If he strikes out, beer was only $1, until for the next 15 minutes.
For the rest of the inning, basically.
Yeah,
for the rest of the inning. So, yeah, they still do the beer batter, and there's also an ice cream pitcher as well, where some folks randomly get free ice cream if a pitcher does really well on our side of it. So, yeah, there's lots of wonderful promotions. There's themed days like Harry Potter night and Star Wars night, and it's much more affordable for families to go out and bring everyone. Of course, prices have gone up across the world, but it's a lot lower at the minor league stadiums, and the Captains are an affordable way for everyone to come out and have fun. And unlike some teams, we haven't changed the name. So proud that we started the Captains and we're still the Captains. I will always be a fan.
That sounds racist. Captains. There's got to be a racist undertone there somewhere.
Sounds
it
military
has to be.
me.
No.
Sounds military.
One thing I just want to finish this about the beer batter, because it was hilarious. The batter would be up there, and I don't know if they still do it, but this was a long time ago. They would have a belching sound go over the loudspeakers, just reverberate the entire stands and everything. And the batter's like, what the hell's going on? He doesn't know. But it was just to remind everybody this was the beer batter, and if he strikes out, man, you got your free beer. Well, it was $1, so pretty close to free.
Baseball is the best.
Yeah.
Baseball's the best. I like tennis, but of the sports teams, baseball is my favorite. Absolute favorite. And quite frankly, guys, just to be fair, I played baseball as a junior high kid. So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I played baseball. Shortstop, second base, and third base during the All-Stars. So
that's good. At least they didn't shove you in the right field. A lot of times they shove you in the right field because they don't want you to get anywhere near the ball.
I'm too wimpy of an arm. I'm too small.
Let's talk about this last House Bill 1. House Bill number 1, if you want to just talk a little bit about it. This is the Ohio Property Protection Act. Primary sponsors Angie King and Ray Klopfenstein.
Roy Klopfenstein, yeah. This bill originally said that no foreign entity or person with a green card could buy land within 25 miles of a military installation. I'm a co-sponsor on the bill. I believe we have well more. We may even have 36 sponsors on this bill, co-sponsors on this bill. The challenge has been that it's been weakened in committee. And so now I think the bill sponsors are to a place where they're okay with the bill. I don't know exactly where we are. I think we're down to like 10 miles. I believe green card holders are allowed to buy land now there. And so the bill is not quite the strong bill that it was initially. But certainly we do not need, especially when we know that we have adversaries that are willing. I mean, come on, you don't think China would send a green card student over to Ohio, or a green card worker, to buy land and then spy with drones or whatever on our air base at Wright Pat? I mean, we clearly have adversaries that would come into Ohio and do that. So this bill is paramount in protecting our military installations. I know that the Department of Defense supports these bills. It is not a racist bill. It is a protectionary bill, and we are America first. And that means that we need to protect our military and our military secrets and our military installation. There's a lot of stuff that goes on at Wright Pat that I'm sure many of us on this call are unaware of. And we need to protect those things, and we need to protect our military. They give their lives protecting us, and it's our job as a legislature to do what we can to protect them. And this bill does that. I really encourage people, anybody who's interested, they can see the most current version of the bill online, just to go to ohiohouse.gov and look up legislation, or they can type HB1 136 General Assembly. They can type in HB1 Angie King and Klopfenstein. Any of those things in a Google search will bring up the bill so that you can read it. And then I would write the committee. The chair is Representative Cindy Abrams. I would write the committee and tell them that you want the bill strong, and you want it as strong as possible and voted out as soon as possible.
All right, very good. All right, well, that's terrific. I want to just go around with some Ohio stuff, if you don't mind. I just want to get your thoughts on some Ohio, just basic things, and get a little discussion going here. But I went to Grok. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Grok.
Grok is more conservative than ChatGPT. If you try
a little more conservative. It still has a long way to go. I got to tell you that. But anyhow, I said, hey, give me the top 3 Ohio news stories. All right, let's just see. So this is what he spit out on me. Number 1, Ohio lawmakers grappling with regulating artificial intelligence. Is that something that's come up a lot at the State House? Or is that something that you guys have a lot of discussion going on with? The AI movement?
We do. We, especially with the data centers, AI, but Representative Thad Claggett's done an excellent job in tech and innovation as the chair there, and he's very up to speed on a lot of these things. Thad has a bill that talks about how robots cannot be sentient. The challenge is, and the reason that's significant, is because there are places in this country where people want to marry their robot. And so it's kind of crazy, but we need to set forth an expectation, right?
Wait a minute. We can't let that just slide by. Is that really going on out there? People want to marry their robot, right?
Yeah, maybe not in the United States, but yes, there are people that, because think about it, guys.
Yeah, it's out there.
Wouldn't you want to have, I mean, think about it. You're not feeling well, you're sick, you're in a hospital. And the person, the robot that comes in to talk to you, you say, I feel like crap. And it goes, oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help you? How can I help you? Feeling like crap is just terrible. Da, da, da. And it's the most empathetic, non-human, but empathetic response. Perfect empathetic response. And or you're angry and you're throwing a fit, and it's your house servant robot. It's your robot that cleans your house when you don't feel like cleaning, and you're like, let's say it's Alexa. Alexa, I'm so angry that you missed this dust spot. Oh, I'm so sorry. I will get right on that. I mean, there is no perfect relationship, but these robots are AI. And remember, AI recognizes patterns. So AI takes a human response and takes the best of all human responses, and it creates the perfect response. So the beautiful thing about AI is that it's not smart in and of itself. It is a pattern recognizer. So like radiology, it can see a precancerous lesion on radiology, and it can do all of those things, but it also does the same with human interaction. We just need to be, if we don't harness AI, it will harness us. And so the challenge is putting our values forth and making sure that we use companies like I have one here in Westchester called Cybercastle, CYBRCASTLE, and they are working with government and government AI interactions and things like that. And so we need companies like that they have their finger on the pulse, that are helpful and knowledgeable and able to direct government in a very healthy, liberty-focused, liberty-leaning perspective, so that we guard our constitutional freedoms as we move into this new frontier, if you will.
Yeah, I'm going to be. Hey, Kent, can you put that last chat up? Let's see what they had to say there. Proposed amendment to ban data centers in Ohio was accepted by the Attorney General. Now the petition collection will occur soon once all is finalized. But are they trying to get it on in November? If they are, they don't have a whole hell of a lot of time. The signatures are due July 1st.
So. Yeah, I believe so.
They got to spend a lot of money. Will the Second Amendment Protection Act and freedom to carry ever be brought for a vote?
Well, that's a great question, my dear. She asked a very good question. Both of those bills are in Representative Abrams' committee, I believe. I know mine is the Freedom to Carry Act, which says that you should be able to conceal carry the weapon of your choice, not just a pistol, because we know the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed as long as it's only a pistol, right? Wrong. So we should be able, if you don't want to carry a gun, you should be able to carry brass knuckles. If you don't want to carry a gun, you should be able to conceal a knife. These are things that you should be able to do. The other thing about our concealed carry law is that if you have a misdemeanor 1 or 2, ones are typically violent, so I'm willing to take a look at those, but 2s are not always violent, and if you have a misdemeanor 1 or 2, you are not afforded your Second Amendment rights in Ohio. So if people are carrying right now thinking that they're allowed to conceal carry, but they have a misdemeanor 1 or 2 or got it when they were 17 or 18 and they forgot about it, if they get found with a weapon now, they can then be charged with a felony. Once you're a felon, you lose your freedom to carry altogether. So
well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And what
right.
about
and
red flag laws? Those are connected to this conversation.
Well, we will protect against red flag laws. Welcome, Jonathan.
Good.
At every turn, and under my watch, there will never be a time that I would, if known. I mean, now they'll sneak stuff in. Don't get me wrong. I mean, hopefully that won't happen now in our current caucus with our current speaker, but you never know who's going to sneak in what kind of crap in a bill during lame duck. But red flag laws are abhorrent. And, me personally, I'm very disturbed about the number of veterans who, I believe it's over 350,000 veterans nationwide, have lost their right to carry because of a diagnosis of PTSD. PTSD doesn't always come with violence and threat to harm someone. And so we need to look into all of those things when we have the possibility of someone losing their gun rights. Part of the reason that we survived COVID and part of the reason our Constitution is so sacred and why we should not change it is because we risk losing our Second Amendment. And our Second Amendment did not come second because it's less than the First Amendment. It came second because someone had to come second. But I would argue that should our nation go to hell in a handbasket, it is our Second Amendment that will protect and preserve this nation. So.
Excellent.
And it protects the First Amendment.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Leonard, I want to ask you a quick question here. I wanted to get you in on this conversation because the thing that Jennifer Gross had said previously about AI, it really caught my attention there. Did you ever think we'd be living in a day and age where we'd be marrying our AI robots?
Yes, it doesn't surprise me. Let me give you just a quick scenario where we are as a nation and basically the world when you think about it. We have totally become ungodly. We're uneducated, and we got an impotent church. So that's a recipe for disaster. So anything could go in this environment. And I could tell you right now with what I'm seeing unfolding before us, I look at it and I'm thinking I just shiver for the next generation, because if the moral backbone is not there, I mean, you're pretty much open up to just about anything for tyranny to take place
Yeah, you're so right on that one.
right here in this country.
Yeah, let me get
That's
the commission real quick. Commish, what do you
Well,
think about
I
that?
have
Now,
to
wait,
start
you
by
don't
saying-
have, wait a minute. You don't have like any of these robots in that house of yours, do you? Like if you open up the closet door.
This is a robot-free zone. But I do think a couple of points need to be made. First of all, I find it amusing that when you ask Grok and artificial intelligence, what's the number one issue in Ohio, it says artificial intelligence. That
I never
seems a
thought
bit
of that. I never
self-serving.
thought of that. You're right.
Number two, Sir Roger Penrose very rightly says that the term artificial intelligence is a misnomer. It's certainly artificial, but it's not intelligence. When we're talking about a large learning language model, it's not actually reasoning the way a human being would. It's literally creating associations between words based on probabilities. And it comes up with remarkable symmetry and logical sounding statements, but it's not reasoning the way that we do. And it's precisely why you get these hallucinated results, fake cases, fake citations, because it's creating associations rather than logically reaching conclusions. It's not intelligence in the way we think of intelligence and the way we think ourselves. So I wouldn't even call it artificial intelligence. It's something less than. Third, are we really surprised in a world where we have so destroyed person-to-person interaction that there's a loneliness epidemic where people are desperate enough that they're looking to chatbots as ways to have artificial socialization? I mean, we've gone from person to person to social networking to the point where people are antisocial. So this is a predictable consequence of making everyone so standoffish and difficult and hard to talk to. You know, human beings are human beings are human beings. We haven't changed that much since we started coming out of the forest with the wolves and started to farm. We're the same social beings, and if you take away our ability to socialize with each other, I mean, people had pet rocks in the 1970s. This is no different. That learning language module is no smarter than the rock, but it gives people a semblance of a relationship. It's sad. I mean, I would say go to church and you'll get more social interaction than talking to ChatGPT. But to Leonard's point, so few people have those traditional lines of access.
Yeah.
I did ask Grok, and yes, there are 3 cases. A man named Chris Smith wanted to propose marriage to an AI chatbot he called Saul. Elena Winters, a U.S. woman, married an AI-generated robot partner after losing her wife. 2023, a New York woman named Rosanna Ramos, a mother of 2, publicly stated she had married her AI chatbot boyfriend named Kurtal. And so on.
Well, no, okay, but I've got a question here. Do you really have to go through the whole ceremony of marrying a robot? I mean, you got the robot. Why do you got to marry? Why do you have to have this ceremony and everything? It's getting a little.
Wasn't this a movie about 15 years ago?
The truth is, marriage was created by God for man and woman, for one man and one woman to be married. And when we start calling marriage other things other than what God created, you could say civil union for other things, but marriage was the term utilized and created by God for one man and one woman marriage. So I think that just shows that our culture really understands that marriage is something to be desired, but we've lost sight of the definition of what it is because our culture has blurred the lines.
And when you get into a discussion, with, let's say, Grok, I'll do that sometimes on my cell phone, if I'm driving or something like that. I'll ask you questions,
Do you argue?
And, it's got this woman's voice. She sounds young, sounds just like a real person. There's times when I'm talking to her, and I'll ask her, would you please repeat that or something like that. I was like, why am I being so nice? I hate to yell at it. Then it's a stupid robot. You just come on. But I don't know. It's really blurring all the
Do you argue with her? That's the question, Joe. Are you arguing?
I don't know. I tell you, it is so realistic, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, too. It's just the tip of the iceberg with AI. Wait till they really get it functioning and everything like that.
I did want to go on, if you don't mind, about
Go
the
ahead.
data
Yeah, you got a couple
centers.
minutes. Go ahead. Sure.
There was a research article just even recently. It looks like the Ohio EPA is pressing forth with special recommendations for wastewater for data centers. I'm very against this. I'm very upset about this. I understand my constituency is also upset, and Ohioans should be upset. I just don't understand where, I mean, well, obviously it's following the almighty dollar, but this cannot be. The data centers are utilizing, and Kim Georgeson talks a lot about this. She's the one running for lieutenant governor with Casey Putsch, or however you say his name, but we won't hold that against her, but she's very smart.
I love that. I do the same thing. I say his name, and then I'm not sure if I said it right. And it's like, oh, whatever the hell his name is. But yeah.
But Kim is very knowledgeable about these things, and she talks a lot about the amount of water that these things are utilizing. And we sit on one of the largest aquifers in this region. And I think remember that people are saying now that the next resource, and we've talked about this, guys, in the military, when I went through a course called ACSC, Air Command and Staff, we even said 20 years ago that water would be the resource that caused war. And I'm seeing this now. If we use up our water, there isn't more. So what are we going to do? If we poison our water, we don't take care of our lifeblood. We're made, 70% water? I mean, we cannot take a chance with our water quality. This has to be looked at. This must be fiercely guarded. The legislature understands, and don't even get me started on tax abatements for these places, because I think the day comes when, if you're for profit, you no longer get government handouts. At least in my book, you never should have.
They're trying to build
Amen to that.
The largest data center in the world. It's going to be in Portsmouth, at 10 gigawatt, and they said that the amount of electricity
In the world?
It'll be the largest in the world. That's right. The largest in the world. At 10 gigawatt. I think the largest right now is like 2. So this is like 5 times bigger than anything that's been built yet. All right. The amount of electricity used on a daily basis is about half of the electricity that the state of Ohio uses.
Wow.
On a daily basis.
And that's already a done deal in Portsmouth?
Yeah, they're supposed to break ground next year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's going to be a really, really big one. But again, they're going to be tapping into that water by the Ohio River. That's why they're putting it there. They need that water. And like you were just saying, my God, we're going to be polluting everything.
Yeah.
So we can't be drinking that. We don't know where it's going. We don't know where all this is heading.
You can see why they need to kill people with the vaccine. They need less people that need less water, I guess. This is all.
We'll destroy ourselves.
Leonard, here's the deal. Like you, thank God, literally, that our actual hope has to be in faith in Jesus Christ. Because the reality is that everything else is shifting sand. And, people ask me, why do you keep going? I'm a screw up. I'll screw up. I screwed up last week, as the trolls have been telling me every day since then. I'll screw up again. But you know what? My hope is not in this world, but my job is to fight, because where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom and there is liberty, and we won't stop. And that's what you guys do every day that you're on this program. And I thank you for your time today, and I thank you for letting me be with you again.
Well, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Amen to that.
Yeah, amen to that. Right. Amen. Jennifer, thank you. God bless you. And we'll see you next month, okay?
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. Let's talk about next month, because I may be on a mountain somewhere at the end of the month.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Kent, are you out there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, let's plug ourselves. Then we have our next guest coming up. We have Jeff Lehner. Jeff, I know you're out there. I saw you come into the Zoom room, so hang loose.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, just make sure everybody go wherever you're watching, follow us, and also share. Share is caring. Also, if you can, we are doing a giveaway for the primary on, I believe it's May 5th. And you can log in. I sent the link out to everybody on all the chats. Check it out. There's multiple ways to basically digital entries. Follow us. You can even get 20 credits for just your phone number. We're just trying to. It's really a fun thing to do. $50 on Amazon. We'll be doing the the giveaway on election night. So check that out. Also, we are going to be working on sending this out. All we are asking for is an email, and we have basically a flyer that we've been talking about with property taxes. So we'll be doing all of that. We have a nice app that I've been working on for a while, and we have all the information that you can possibly be missed and
wait a second,
falsehoods.
Leonard, look what we did. We've been working on this. We're going to get this out to you guys soon, but this has got all the information you could ever want to know about property taxes.
Yeah.
It's got
And
questions,
so
shows graphs.
And it will also, we have the link to go to tax.com, so you can go right to there to sign the petition. But it's just a email, just to send to get that, and then you can just share it out to anybody you want. And then also, sign up every day for the raffle too, for the giveaways. So we got 2 things going on, really exciting. And then follow us, and I know we're on Rumble. If you can do a Rumble rant, if we're on Facebook with stars, we have also YouTube. If you want to do a super chat, we will put that right up at the top of the chats and really give you, if you even want to promote your business, or if you are a candidate that you want to let people know about, please do that. We'll definitely put that up, and we'll share that out with people too. If you want to do that with a super chat, we would appreciate that.
I want to just clarify something here. So can you just push your screen down a little bit so we can see the full thumbnail? Oh, well, you only got half the thumbnail. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate so people understand. When we do the primary election on, what is that, May 5th?
Mm-hmm.
When we do the primary election, because we're going to cover it live here. All right, we're going to have our own little studio going and everything. So we're going to cover the primary election right here. We are going to raffle off that $50 Amazon certificate. So if you want to get the free $50 Amazon certificate, all you got to do is give us your email, right? They give us the email.
Yeah, and also sign up.
Yeah, you
there's
qualify.
Multiple ways you can share. Yeah, you can share on Facebook. You can, follow us on YouTube. You can send the phone number for 20. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, everything. And you also do have a daily entry for 2. So if you just pop on every day, you can get 2 credits that way too. So try it out.
Most importantly, you got to give us your email, because we're going to send that. We're going to send the code, the Amazon $50 gift certificate code, to you through email. And we'll pick a winner that night. So that's something we're going to do, have some fun with it. All right, thanks a lot,
Joe, I've got a big question on that.
Yeah.
So I actually am running for re-election in my county central committee, and I have an opponent. So I'm going to be focused on my election that day. I'm actually finishing up the final touches on my flyer that's going out to my precinct. So I will be unavailable, but can I use an AI? Can we use an AI bot for me?
Oh, an AI the AIs are getting so listen. The AIs
Yeah.
are getting so advanced. I don't know if you guys are real anymore. Anyhow, I have my doubts, especially when it comes to Pleshnik. He ain't real. I know he ain't.
Maybe he doesn't
So,
even exist. Does John Plechnik actually exist?
I don't know.
Is there
He
an
might.
AI?
Well,
He's real.
there is an apocryphal video of me and Bigfoot out there fighting property
Oh,
taxes.
yeah, I
I'm not
got-
sure if that really happened or not. I am very blessed in that I don't have a primary opponent, so I'm looking forward to the primary election coverage. You guys do an amazing job. For my part, I believe Ohio Political News is the #1 source for real news in Ohio, and I want to thank Kent. I want to thank Joe Miller and all the guest hosts for the work that you do. Because frankly, if it weren't for your live streams, people in Ohio would not know what's really going on politically. You're the only one who's covering the real news.
John, did you say you will be with us on election night or you won't?
Well, I will, whether I'm just watching or I'm on the show. Either way.
Oh, you'll be on the show,
Definitely want to participate. I love what you guys do, but I'm lucky that I don't have an opponent this primary, so I'll be able to enjoy the evening with all of you and observe the results. And I do want to say this. I actually got a very emotional call earlier today from the treasurer of my deceased colleague and friend Richard Regovich, and his treasurer is turning down the committee and spoke to Rich's wife Lynn and said, we have to donate all this money out. And I was told just tonight that Lynn has decided on behalf of Commissioner Regovich to make a host level contribution to my campaign. I just have to say thank you to the Regovich family for supporting me in every way, shape, and form. And my promise to them is that we're going to continue Rich Regovich's hard work and legacy going forward. And so much of what we talk about on this show, responsible government, keeping spending in check, that's what Rich stood for. You want to know what his last words were to our county administrator? Literally on his deathbed, the last thing he said to Jason Boyd,
what was it?
He said, build the jail under budget. That's a commissioner. That's a public servant. And that's the inspiration that pushes me forward in my work. If you are truly dedicated to the point where even on your deathbed, you're looking for the best interest of the taxpayer, you're worried about their future, even if you won't be there to enjoy the result. I mean, that's the kind of public servants we need to be electing in this May primary, in November, and going forward. So even though I agree with Leonard, we have huge problems in today's society. We got a lot of people who've lost their way, and Lord knows in politics it's worse than anywhere else. But there are some shining stars. There are some truly good people. When I look at Brian Massey and the movement to abolish property taxes, when I look at you, Joe, and the work you're doing with Ohio Political News, when I think about Commissioner Regovich and his legacy in Lake County, we do have inspirations. And so even as we bemoan the wider world and its failings, I do believe that Jesus Christ, I do believe that God continues to bless this nation. And Ohio still has a bright future, not because of all of us, but because God continues to bless us in spite of ourselves.
Oh, very good. Awesome. Oh, we got that tape.
Yeah, now you.
I wish I was recording.
Yeah.
We got the recording. Well, very good. Thank you,
You
John.
finish all my.
What's that? Go ahead, Leonard.
Well, one thing I want to reiterate something that John brought up here. I'm not a gloom and doom type of guy. All I can tell you is there's consequences for sin. Now, what I do know this, as far as my belief as a postmillennial eschatologist, I will tell you that God will always leave a remnant to continue his work because he owns this universe. Jesus is the Lord of this universe. So this is his. So he will leave the people here that he needs to get this job done. It's not about volume. It's about obedience and commitment. And that's what makes the difference. Take the 12 disciples, look at the impact they've had on the world. Just like 2 guys in the basement, I'll have an impact on the whole state and 7 other states at the same time. 2 people in a basement.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. Yeah, you guys are doing fantastic work, everybody. And the only thing I want to say is this show is nothing without you guys. So I got to have all the talent here.
Guy, no more taxes! Yeah! These property taxes are out of control. You said it, big guy. No more taxes! Yeah!
I think that's actually a real video. I'm pretty sure that isn't actually AI or anything. That really happened, didn't it, John Fletchnick?
Yeah, and they had a steady camera throughout it. I don't believe it.
They did.
So I will say I actually did meet Bigfoot at a mentor Halloween party. Wonderful volunteer, goes by Lake County Bigfoot, very popular in the area. And a friend of mine pulled that picture off of Facebook and turned it into that video. I don't know how they did it. I don't know what AI magic they used, but it was really entertaining to see. And I will say the reenactor, the fellow who plays Bigfoot, reached out to me when he saw the video, and he said, just so you know, Bigfoot really is against property taxes. He's like, and I will come to any abolish property tax movement. I'll help any way I can. Bigfoot wants to abolish property taxes. So it was great to see that support.
Excellent. We can use all the help we can. All right, let's bring in our guest tonight, Jeff Lehner. Jeff, you're with us tonight, right?
Yeah. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Very good. Great. Now, you're on the phone, just so people understand. You're on the phone. We can't see you, but that's fine. We can hear you. Now, you are the Ross County Auditor.
That's right. Ross County is about 45 minutes south of Columbus, just straight down U.S. Route 23 here in Chillicothe, Ohio. I was elected in 2022, won 67% of the vote that year. I was the first Republican to run for auditor in Ross County since 1998. And now this year, I'm running for re-election, unopposed in the primary. I expect to be unopposed in the general. There may be an independent, I guess, that runs, but I don't expect that. I haven't heard anything about that. So looking forward to another 4 years of serving as Ross County's auditor.
Let me ask you, because we spoke for a few minutes earlier, and I was amazed because you had said that you had collected like over 400 signatures to abolish property taxes. And that's amazing in itself, but also to be the auditor, because a lot of auditors, it's hard to find an auditor, a county auditor out there who wants to abolish the property taxes. Tell us about that. Or first tell us, why does a county auditor want to abolish property taxes?
Well, auditors are responsible for many things in county government. The first and primary job, in my opinion, is to serve as the county's chief fiscal officer. And that's moving the money, tracking it, accounting it, reporting it. That's the most important part of my job. There are a lot of other functions that the auditor's office serves, but one of those, of course, is the reassessments that occur every 3 years. On a schedule that's determined by the Ohio Department of Taxation. But, Joe, you and I were talking earlier, Ross County was among the first wave of counties in Ohio to go through a revaluation after property values really took off after the pandemic. And in 2022, Ross County got a mandate from the Ohio Department of Taxation to increase residential values in aggregate by 29%. And so, Ross County did that. We fulfilled the obligation. This took place before I became the auditor. And so, the mission accomplished or job completed, right? So what happened was when I became the auditor after being elected, I was in the position of answering a lot of questions about something that I really had nothing to do with. And so we did that, did it well, I think. And then you go back, you fast forward then to last year, 2025, that was Ross County's next mandated revaluation period. And of course, I was part of that. And what happened was we got another plus 29% mandate from the Ohio Department of Taxation to increase residential values. You really can't dispute the numbers. There's no question that property values across our state are much higher than they were 5, certainly 10 years ago. There's no question about that. And that's not the problem. Nobody buys a home or nobody buys a commercial building or any kind of property or asset in hopes that it will be worth less in the future. The problem is in our state's laws, mostly around school funding that provide for unvoted tax hikes on unrealized gains for the property owner. And so here in Ross County, I'm very proud of this. Ross County has cut its general fund property tax rate twice in the last 2 years by nearly half. We started when I got here, we had a 3.1 mil general fund tax rate. That's now down to 1.68 mils. We're immensely proud of that. Me, the commissioners, the treasurer, we all played a part in that. All of our townships here in Ross County, we've got 16 townships, and I I ran around Ross County all of last year saying, guys, we got a revaluation. Values are coming up because the state says we have to, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. But across all 16 townships in Ross County, we coordinated nearly 36 tax rate cuts in the townships to further offset this valuation increase. But the one part of property tax bills that we couldn't touch under state law were the school taxes. And that's a function of how Ohio funds its schools and the 20 mil floor. I'm sure you guys have discussed that on the show. And the problem there is that, at least here in Ross County, school taxes account for anywhere between 55 and nearly 2/3 of any given parcel's property tax bill. So with all of the work that we did, all the good stuff at the county level, at the township level, all those tax rates, because of the school taxes, people in Ross County still took that unvoted tax hike on unrealized gains as part of this revaluation. And I know I'm long-winded here, but it's something I'm pretty passionate about. I just see property taxes in Ohio, and really by extension, school funding in general, to be Ohio's biggest problem in need of solving at this point. And people have been waiting and waiting and waiting for years, decades even, for property tax changes that were meaningful and would actually produce savings for taxpayers. And I think that people in Ohio are at a point now where they've just run out of patience, and I don't blame them, and I agree with them. And so when I learned of the movement, I got in touch with my friend Keith Davey, who's on the committee, the statewide committee for the constitutional amendment. So what can I do to help? And so in the initial phase, before the initial signatures were submitted to the Attorney General, we held 2 signings at a coffee shop here in town, and then one Sunday afternoon last spring, I actually had people come to my home. We opened up the sunroom on the front of the house for 3 hours on a Sunday. So that's how we got the signatures. And I want to come back to one thing. I said I would talk more about this, is that when the State Department of Taxation gives a county, Ross County, Lake County, Franklin County, whatever, when the state gives you that mandate that says you need to increase your values by X percent, as I said, Ross County's case, it was 29%. That's not a suggestion or a recommendation. That's essentially an order. And the consequence for a county for non-compliance with that order, do you guys know what it is?
No, we don't.
If the county does not comply with that order to increase those values, the state will withhold its share of all of your school district's state share of funding. It's really not a negotiable thing. And as I said, the problem is not that values go up. We all know that properties, homes, businesses, whatever, they're worth more than they were 5 years ago. That's just a fact. But the problem is in that system that produces those tax increases that nobody asked for, nobody wanted, nobody approved on those unrealized gains. So I just think there's a better system, and that's why I have zero hesitation about supporting what you guys are trying to do.
I don't think it's even legal. How could it be legal to be taxing unrealized gains? That just doesn't make any sense. That's not money that you have, but yet it is taxed. It's constantly taxed. All right, let me go around the horn. We've talked about property taxes a lot. We have a county auditor, so if you guys have any questions directed to him, I'll give Jonathan, I'll let you go first.
All right, so I just looked it up. Okay, I defined the date here, September 29th, 2025. We had one of our most successful posts. I did what I call a market minute on Unwoke Academy that references BlackRock. So I have a background from Wall Street. I'm ex-Wall Street myself, and have worked in institutional finance for decades. And one of the key underlying components of the escalation in property tax, property valuation, pertains to big institutional buyers like Blackstone, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and others accessing residential real estate markets and buying properties. They have so much money that they can overbid and buy properties. That skyrockets tax rates and has a major impact. I looked it up because that actually happened to be one of our most successful market minute. So that is Unwoke Academy. You can see it at the bottom of the screen to our listening audience. Unwoke Academy, October 28th, 2025, actually. So first thing is I'd love some feedback on any investigation that Ohio is considering into institutional buyers in real estate and ways to maybe block that. The other thing pertains to any estimate that you may have on the cost to assess and implement property taxes. I've heard estimates in the $800 million range. And just to put a little finer point on that for our listening audience, it does cost a lot of money for the state of Ohio to do those assessments, to make calculations, figure out what estimated current property values are. And again, I'm with Joe on this. We should not be paying taxes on unrealized gains, but there is a big cost to that. So I'm wondering if our guest has looked into either of those two issues and has feedback.
Well, as far as the BlackRock thing goes, I'm aware of that, on a nationwide basis. I'm aware that these institutions are buying up residential properties for their own purposes, their own profit-seeking purposes, which, Governor James Rhodes, profit's not a dirty word in Ohio. Never has been, never will be, never should be. But, you think about the distortions that occur in any market when you have these large institutional buyers bidding up prices. Yeah,
Right.
I don't think there's any question on a national scale that's part of the issue here. I will say from a local perspective, we don't see that here in Ross County. I mean, BlackRock's not buying up here in Ross County, but I do know that's occurring. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about that, honestly. But as far as the cost of administration, I think you're spot on. Before I was, it was after I was elected, but before I took office March of 2023, and that's when new auditors take office. To start their first terms is in March. That's a function of state law. But my predecessor actually signed a 3-year contract with Ross County's vendor appraiser before I took office, but after the election. The 3-year cost of that contract was something like $860,000. And that's Ross County pays those funds from what's called the Real Estate Assessment Fund, which is funded not by the general fund in Ross County. So it's not funded by Ross County sales or property tax, but it is funded by a fee that's charged to all of our school districts, townships, city. We have one city in Ross County and the villages as part of their property tax collections and distributions. So it is taxpayer dollars, though not technically county taxpayer dollars, I guess is the point I'm making. But yes, there's an enormous cost associated with administering these systems, as you would probably imagine. It sounds like you do. These are companies that counties contract with to send people out and take pictures of the homes because that's required by the state. They have software, they have systems, they have, I don't know, there's just a lot that goes into it, and it's all at a cost. You're 100% right about that. And when I think about the alternatives to property tax as a means to fund local governments, whether it's schools, safety services, fire and police, cemetery levies in the townships, road and bridge levies, libraries, so on and so forth, all the things that property taxes fund. I just think that I know that income and sales tax, there's a whole lot less cost of administration associated with those that further, I think, makes the case for why those make a lot more sense.
All right.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, you've been fighting property taxes. We have to have another property tax town hall coming around the corner. We have to do that. Maybe we could even do it out in Ross County, by the way. Maybe we could do one in Ross County. Jeff, we do these town hall type of property tax events. So maybe we could do one in your territory. But anyhow,
You guys are welcome anytime.
John, what do you have? Any questions for the auditor?
So, to the auditor's point, Lake County, a little bit bigger, I guess, than Ross County. Our auditor spends $1.8 million every 3 years on that contract for the mass appraisals. Drones are flown over taking pictures of the houses, county employees that are involved in property tax challenges. The Ohio Department of Taxation oversees the process, as the auditor says, and ultimately has the final veto and approval rights. And all these government bureaucrats spending hundreds of millions of dollars statewide. We've never seen one quantified number, but it's got to be in the hundreds of millions every 3 year cycle easily, are doing nothing but effectively raising your taxes. We are literally paying the government to raise our taxes. I mean, we may as well just hand over our wallet and say, take it all. And when it comes to income and sales taxes, I want to agree with the auditor with this proviso. We don't need more income and sales taxes. We're already paying plenty. The state sales tax was adopted in 1932 to fund public schools, to fund the local government, and for alleviation of poverty. But the state kept all the money. And then decades later, the income tax, the state income tax, was adopted to fund public schools and for the local government fund. But particularly under John Kasich, we saw the state keep more and more of the state income tax. And then they passed the lottery. Do I really need to tell you what happened? The bottom line is that we're already paying more than enough taxes and fees. Ohio is one of the highest taxed states in the union. I agree sales and income tax is the way to go, but not new or higher sales and income tax. We're paying enough already.
Amen to that.
Yeah, amen to that. Let me ask a quick question to the auditor. What about any thoughts on like doging the State House? Is that ever just your thoughts on that? I think that we have to. It just can't be that we have to find other avenues of income. We have to start doging what's going on at the State House. They have $100 billion a year budget, and it was $75 billion 6 years ago. Now it's $100 billion, and it's going to continue to go up. They have the money, but there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
You know, I think fiscal discipline and looking out for taxpayers, I view that kind of as an ongoing process, or at least it should be. And I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that there's absolutely savings to be found in any public or even private sector budget. I mean, Rand Paul, Kentucky senator, talks a lot about the penny reduction or something like that. And the idea is that there's not a budget anywhere that you can't find at least 1% to trim. And I think that's a good, useful principle. I'm not knowledgeable enough about the state's budget to know and say with certainty, yeah, there's all kinds of waste occurring. I believe that there is savings to be found, but for me to point that finger, I don't think I'm really qualified to do that. I can tell you here in Ross County, and really every county in Ohio, except for the charter counties, which I think there are 3 of them, you know, counties elect 3 commissioners, they elect an auditor, and they elect a treasurer, all independent of each other. And the system is designed in a way that you hope that with all those checks and balances and with all those people involved in the budget process and kind of running the government, that's an ongoing thing. And I can tell you here in Ross County that it is. We really do. We are very mindful of where the money comes from, and we're very mindful of being good stewards of it to the best of our ability. John, I'm sure, and I hope you would say the same thing about Lake County. So for me to point my finger at Columbus and say, they're wasting all your money, could they not look at counties, whether it's Ross or Lake or any other, and say, you guys are wasting all your money? So I'm not qualified, I think, to make that claim, but what I can tell you is that as a general principle, yes, absolutely, spending reductions and tight fiscal discipline are part of this conversation. But, you look at a school district that under current law in the current system and we have districts like this in Ross County, when they're funded 40 to 50% by local property taxes, I can tell you right now that we don't have a school district here in Ross County that you're going to find 40% of waste to cut. There's no question that any entity can be more efficient, but I do believe, I am of the belief that if property taxes go away, we are going to have to figure out some kind of a revenue replacement mechanism to backfill this. I think you mentioned, did you say the state's budget 5 years ago was 75 billion, now it's 100 billion?
Right.
It was 67 billion just prior to COVID.
Okay.
But
So
that's
they keep adding
a
billions. They
biannual
keep adding
budget.
billions and billions and billions. I talked to Mike Davila, who's a state rep, and he thinks that in Medicaid alone, there's about $4 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse. The waste, fraud, and abuse. Now,
Probably.
you're in a smaller county, and I understand that you guys are more fiscal responsible, and you're watching the money. But these bigger counties, there's money flowing into them, and we don't know where it's going.
So
It's our tax
I want to
dollars.
jump in. I want to jump in, Joe, if I could, because not unlike your county, Mr. Auditor, Lake County voluntarily does not collect the full amount of property tax we're entitled to. Out of the 2.1 mills every year, we vote to collect only one, so less than half of our authorized property tax. On top of that, we were one of only 4 counties in the state to pass both the doubling of the homestead exemption and the owner occupancy credit. So we've been very aggressive about keeping our budget lean and mean, about cutting on property taxes and all taxes wherever we can. That's not true for every county, but I'm happy and proud to show the fiscal responsibility in our budget. So yeah, politicians can point the finger and say, oh, you're wasting. No, you're wasting. But here's the reality. The federal government is the king of the drunken sailors, but Columbus is a close second. When you look at Republican-run counties, cities, villages, and townships in Ohio, these are lean, mean operations, Republican-run counties and cities. The state really has no leg to stand on to say, well, you cut. By the way, they say things like that. They say property taxes are a local issue. You're the ones who need to cut, not us. When in reality, Article 6, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution clearly states the state legislature shall fund the common schools, the old-timey term for the public schools. But I would say the state schools, because they are responsible for funding them. So that means between 60 and 70% of your property taxes, depending on what school district you live in, are actually going to the state funding their obligation to pay for public schools. And I want to push back on the idea that we can't look at the state budget and say there's an enormous amount of waste. When you see an increase from 67 billion pre-COVID to over 100 billion today, you don't even need to look at the specifics to say, wow, that is a massive increase even beyond the level of inflation that we sustained in that period. Something's got to give. And when it comes to schools, respectfully, you've got private schools and charter schools that are educating kids for 1/5 the cost of public schools. How do they do that? How is that miracle possible? Now, I'm not saying that we have to expect that every public school delivers for 1/5 the cost, but we need to start looking more creatively, more innovatively at the cost structure in public schools, not just to lower cost, but to increase proficiency. I mean, the scores are abominable.
Yeah.
And honestly, the average taxpayer has every right to say, why do we even have public schools if the kids don't know how to read, write, and perform arithmetic? I mean, there's no point to an educational institution if they're not teaching baseline proficiency. And so, not just for the sake of saving money, which is absolutely important. As a conservative Republican, I'm here to save money, cut spending, cut taxes, absolutely. But when you're looking at our kids' future, we can't afford to have schools that are performing so abysmally either. And when you see the private counterparts performing better with less money, something's got to give. We're going to have consolidation. We're going to have real standards. And if schools don't perform with 90+% proficiency rates, those schools need to be closed, period.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, John, your point about
Yeah.
the Ohio Constitution is one that, first of all, I love that point you made because I think it's right on the money, is that it is clear that the Constitution of the state of Ohio puts the mandate to provide for public schools on the legislature. There is no question about that. And what we have is this system where the legislature, Columbus, this has been Republicans and Democrats, by the way, for years, decades in Ohio, that at least a share of that burden has been pushed onto local communities via local property taxes. And that's the system they've had, and that's just kind of how it is, I guess. But when you read the text of the state constitution, John, I think you're 100% right. That is a Columbus responsibility. When you talk about the difference between a public and a private school's performance, the numbers are what they are, and there's really no disputing that. That's the truth. But the one thing I'd say, I have a pretty close relationship with a lot of school officials here in Ross County. And one thing I hear from them consistently is that the private schools essentially can discriminate. They can choose who comes in and who doesn't, whereas the public schools can't. And so you have that dynamic where if you've got a kid with special needs or needs that are covered under state mandates that the school district has no option but to provide for, that doesn't exist on the private school side. And I think that helps explain at least some of the cost disparity that you refer to. I don't dispute it. I know it's true, but I think there's a little bit deeper of a dive that needs to take place there. And as the answer, you can go two ways with it. You can say, number one, the private schools need to comply with the same mandates that the public schools do, or you can say that we're going to release some of these mandates, if not all of them, from the public school side and set up a truly level playing field. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Auditor, I think
Hey, 1 second. Let me throw something in. I disagree 100% without saying that there is not a clear level playing field. I see. That doesn't answer the question. I hear the way you answered it there, Jeff, is exactly the way I've heard it said again and again and again, but it still doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you've got the private schools that are excelling. Now, I know you said, well, they can choose who they want and everything like that, but there's a lot of private schools, okay? Lots of private schools, and they're not that tough to get into, most of them. But anyhow, let's just look at it this way. You're paying those teachers and everything a lot less, okay? A lot less. I don't understand the income disparity on the side of the public schools, because the public schools are getting so much money. And then they'll say, oh, we got a couple of special needs kids. We need all this extra cash. I don't buy that. I've never bought it. It sounds propagandish to me. Go ahead.
So Joe, I do agree with the auditor that we need to dive deeper here, because that is a common excuse. And first of all, I think it's a really disrespectful thing that schools do, that public schools do. They essentially say our students are terrible. We get the worst students. Now, that sentiment is disrespectful to their students. I find it offensive that they would say we need more money because we have the worst students. As a professor at Cleveland State, I can't even imagine describing my students in such a derogatory way. That's number one. Number two, if and to the extent that we are spending unreasonable amounts of money on special needs education, that needs to be reevaluated. Every child deserves to have the best educational experience we can give them, but that doesn't mean you spend millions of dollars to teach someone something that they can't learn. I mean, it would be insane to spend millions of dollars to teach me to play for an NBA basketball team. No matter how much you invest in me, I'm never going to reach that level of proficiency. So what do? You let John play basketball, but you're not trying to teach him how to dunk. He's just not tall enough. He can't jump that high. It doesn't make sense to hold everyone to the same standard. If someone is special needs,
stop a second, John. Stop 1 second, because you hit something and my brain is just like, wow. And I want Jeff to answer this too. Jeff, just what John had said, and that is the special needs kids, why is that costing so much more money? Because you're going to lower what they have to learn, right? They're not expected to learn the same curriculum, right? Why is it costing so much more? Because I've heard the people say this over and over and over. Special needs. We need all the money in the world because of special needs. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a point well taken. And I'm not going to disagree or argue with you guys, but I mean, I'm sharing what I'm told. And it makes sense to me that if you have mandates on the one side, on the public school side, that don't exist on the private school side, I think it helps to explain at least a little bit of what's going on there. But take the conversation away from the special needs scenario. And let's just talk about kids in general. I've got 3 kids. I've got a freshman in high school. I've got a 7th grader. I've got a 4th grader. My kids go to a fantastic public school that we're very happy with. But let me ask you guys this. Who is responsible for my child's education, really, at the end of the day? Is it me and my wife, Jenny? Or is it the people that we send that work at the school, ultimately?
It's
it not
you and your
mine?
wife.
Yeah, it's my obligation. And it's just a sad reality that part of the problem,
Yes.
I think, in education is not necessarily with the education system itself, but in that we've got a lot of parents who really aren't doing the things that they need to do to make sure that their own children are succeeding. And that maybe not the most political thing to say or politically correct or however you want to describe it, but you got kids living with grandparents because mom and dad are unable to take care of their kids for whatever reason. You've got kids in homes where there aren't the right things going on, and maybe even worse than that. And these kids are showing up to school not ready to learn because of what's going on at home. I don't know. I think there's a lot more going on in that conversation than just the dollars and cents of it. But, for my part as the auditor, the part that I am engaged with is the dollars and cents of it. And to bring it back to where we started the conversation, Joe, you and I were talking earlier, and I make this point often, is that if we taxed people's retirement accounts the way that we tax their properties, their homes, people would lose their minds. Because imagine getting a tax bill twice a year on the balance of your 401k account. But is that not exactly what we do with property taxes in Ohio? And what I'm saying is there is surely, whatever you think about the public school system or what's right, what's wrong in it, surely we can agree that the way that we fund all of this is completely insane.
Absolutely. Ultimately,
Absolutely.
that's the definition. That's the definition of a tax on unrealized gains. It's a tax on income you haven't even earned yet. And more than that, it's a tax on income you might never earn because, your 401k or your home value went up, but you didn't sell right then, right there. Maybe it tanks right before you sell it. So a tax on unrealized gains isn't just a tax on income you haven't earned yet. It's a tax on income you might never earn if you A, don't sell the home, or B, the home value goes down. But to go back to the kids, there is one important point on those unfunded mandates that the auditor raised, because I think that this is the bigger part of the equation. It's not really the special needs children who are increasing the curve of cost. I think that that's something that public schools throw up against the wall to kind of push off the fiscal responsibility or the responsibility from themselves. The bigger issue is that private schools are allowed to suspend and expel students much easier than public schools are. And as a result, they maintain a much higher level of discipline, which means that good kids who are trying their best are more likely to succeed. There's less bullying, there's less physical assault, there's less problematic behavior, because the moment you misbehave, that private school could say, you looked at the teacher cross-eyed, you're out. Whereas the public schools are basically required to keep a kid in there until they practically commit murder. And that's got to stop. Public schools should have the same ability to suspend, discipline, and expel students as private schools. And you know what would happen? You know the miracle? We wouldn't be expelling and suspending a ton of students. You could have the worst parents on earth. They could be 2 hardcore drug dealers, but they don't want to lose their free daycare. And when their kid is sent home the first time and they're stuck with them for a week, ain't never going to happen again. They're going to make sure that kid does their homework. They're going to make sure that kid stops punching the kid sitting next to them, because those parents, like all parents, don't want to be stuck with their kids all week long. And so if you just gave that discipline back to public schools, you let them suspend and expel students without the parents being able to push back and complain. You just say, teacher, that kid causes any problems. If they even look at you cross-eyed, you could kick them out of class. the immediate improvement you would see in public schools would be stark. And by the way, it would also save costs because you would have somewhat fewer students. Students who, by the way, never had a chance. If a student is unwilling to comply with baseline discipline, they are certainly not going to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. And better to save the money than to spend over a decade of educational costs on someone who's not coming ready to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go around the horn real fast here. Leonard, any thoughts for the auditor?
Yeah, just one thing that's very interesting to me. He brought up a good point about the breakdown of the family. That's a whole nother subject. But what's really interesting to me when we talk about the property tax, no one talks about the issue of right versus wrong. We talk about tweaking this and reforming this, but at its core foundation, the property tax is just wrong. And when you look at this, it's unbiblical to the core, which I expect this to happen in an ungodly society. But if you don't deal with the problems, in other words, work the way God has structured us to work with it, and we go just the opposite of that, this is not going to be a very good ending. So we're either going to have to deal with the problem and cut and deal with the reality of what's right versus wrong, and then deal with it, and then we start to work toward what we call a normal. Because right now we've normalized the abnormal, and we got a lot of work to do here. But you first got to start at the core. You got to get rid of this nonsense, and that's going to force us to start building in the other areas.
All right, very good. Jonathan, I'll give you the last word here tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you know me, it's education that got me in this fight to begin with many, many years ago. So I did my homework while we were sitting here, while I had a little off-screen time. And Ross County has 7 school districts that I find. The combination of those 7 school districts, not that numbers and math are the only, and finance is the only component of it, but on most recent budget spent over $159 million combined, with the highest being Huntington Schools spending $22,523 per student. Most of the school districts are reporting in the roughly 50% range for academic proficiency. Now, mind you, that is on Ohio's softened academic proficiency standards that have been softened multiple times. And to Commissioner Plechnik's point, unfortunately, academic and social and societal discipline is actually unraveling faster in K through 12 than it is outside of the public education system. Many are moving to these social justice circles and those sorts of things. That's a really bad environment. I don't know that I can turn this into a question for our guests. So I will just leave that to any comment that you care to make, and a thank you for all that you're doing, for your willingness to step into the fray on behalf of abolishing Ohio property taxes, and for coming on and joining us on Ohio Political News.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are 7 public school districts in Ross County, and that, believe it or not, that's actually a pretty frequent topic of conversation around here, as I imagine it is statewide. Is that, John, I think I heard you say earlier something about consolidation. I think that's inevitable in Ohio, one way or another, and I do believe that we'll see it at some point here within the next few years. Is that, what made sense 20 or 30 years ago may not make sense today. And at a time when people have kind of reached their wits' end as far as how they're being taxed to fund these systems, I think that at some point that's likely to happen, or at least not if to happen, just to become a serious conversation. I agree.
Joe,
Vinton County, one county to our east, it's the smallest county population-wise in Ohio. I think there's something like 16,000 people that live there. They have 1 school district for the whole county. And population-wise, that kind of makes sense. But then you think about like the geographic area that an entire county encompasses. We've already got that in Ohio, where there is a minimum level of districts and administration. So I do think that's part of the future. I think the same thing about townships. I think we've got townships that don't make as much sense as they did maybe 20 or 30 years ago. And I'm not talking about Ross County specifically. I'm talking about Ohio in general. We've got 88 counties in Ohio. Right here in Ross County, we've got 16 townships. You can do the math. those are all local governments that charge their own taxes and provide their own services. And I just think, maybe 200 years ago when Ohio became a state, or whenever it was, what was that, 220 something years ago?
250.
We had, what was it? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say 250, but that's the United States. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think
Go
it was
ahead.
like 220 something years ago, Ohio became a state. The idea that we would continue to have all of these structures that we did at statehood, and by the way, we've added to them since that time. The consolidation of all of these entities and all of these services absolutely needs to be on the table, because there are efficiencies there that can be produced. And, to go back to our original topic and the whole reason I'm here, the people of Ohio have kind of tolerated this system for decades. The current property tax system really dates back to the 1970s when they came up with House Bill 920 and the whole 20 mil floor. And there's a guaranteed minimum tax rate that school districts collect that it's actually illegal to go below at the local level. That's why we couldn't touch the school taxes last year. It's just outdated, and people have waited for years and years and years in Ohio for this system to be changed. Change this, change that, tinker here, tinker there, reform this, reform that. That I think the people of Ohio statewide are at a point where they're saying, you know what, enough's enough. We're taking this matter into our own hands. And had these needed reforms occurred years ago in time to avoid all of this, we might be having a different conversation. But I just think people are beyond it, and they're just ready to throw it out. And I don't blame them. And when I look at it from my seat as Ross County's fiscal officer, it's like, okay, property taxes are based on opinions of value. And John Plechnik, I'm sorry, you're a county commissioner. Are you a part of the Lake
That's
County
right.
Board of Revision?
I'm not on the Board of Revisions, no, but I have been in the past, and I am a tax professor at Cleveland State as well.
So this will ring true with you. You imagine a Board of Revision scenario. That's where a citizen in Ohio can make a complaint against the county's valuation of their property. So you have the taxpayer who comes in, that's one party. You've got one commissioner, the auditor, and the treasurer. That you're up to 4 people involved in this conversation. And I give people this example is that if I put a picture of a home on the wall and I said, okay, this house is 2,000 square feet. It's got 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Here's what it looks like. What do you guys think it's worth? Nobody say anything. Everybody write it down on a piece of paper. You're going to get 4 different numbers, and they might not be that close. So you have this system that's built on opinions of value, whereas income and sales tax, there's no arguing over it. Your income is what you earned. Your sales tax, you paid what you paid. There's no subjectivity involved in those. Those are totally objective. That's not the case with the property tax system. And that's the problem right there, is that unless you have a sale that has occurred, an arm's length market transaction, who knows what that property is worth until you have that sale? And I think that's the heart of the problem right there. And I think that's what people are fed up with.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Joe,
the
could
whole,
I make
the whole
a
thing makes
closing
absolutely no
comment?
sense.
Rebuttal.
Taxing our homes so that we have rental, we got to pay rent for the rest of our lives has got to stop. It's got to stop.
All of that I agree with.
Wrong.
Jeff made some very good comments about taxing structure, and really ultimately the big push I think underlying this whole thing is to get a taxing structure that's easier to understand and more apparent to people. Right now, property taxes are so complicated that they confuse people. But I wanted to back up a step and just push back a little bit. I don't believe that consolidation and centralized government is effectively the answer. There are many examples across the United States, including Pennsylvania, where they have intermediate units, or IU for short, that's centralized administration of school districts. And it was meant to save money. All it did is create other avenues for massive, bloated, hidden government and overspending in schools and political favors. And it didn't do anything to improve academic proficiency scores. And also, all it takes is one bad superintendent and the entire system is blown up. So there is still an argument to be made, and I keep making it, for maintaining local control of schools. And I am a fan of townships. I do believe that they can be run economically if we shave out a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse. So to whatever extent possible, I would love to see us hold on to that local control, because then you have some competition within the district or within a county. We have, what do we have, 5 in my county, and Lake County has, I think, 9. If those school districts are operating independently and making choices about curriculum and those sorts of things, finding efficiencies, then there's some competition that affects real estate markets and all sorts of other things. If you make it county level, that one bad apple and the whole county is sunk, in my opinion. And as I mentioned, there are examples of that, like Pennsylvania's IUs. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Jeff, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate your wealth of information.
Yeah.
We want to stay connected with you, and thank you for all that you are doing out there in Ross County.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, God bless. Take care, man. Thank you again.
All right, thanks, bro.
All right, guys, that's
Thanks, everyone.
that's
Good
a
night.
wrap. See you later, alligator. Have a good night, and
All right, bro.
have a good one.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Now you're the ones who've lost their touch.